it's a broken system, but we're super excited that people like you are interested in it and helping us spread the word. So thanks again for having us on today to
Absolutely.
talk about it.
I'm happy that you came on to talk about it because I don't think that people understand that there is concierge medicine out there.
Hey, it's Brad, and boy, am I happy you're here. If this is your first time, I'm really glad you found us. You're not going to be disappointed. And if you've been here before, welcome back. This is Pain to Performance. Let's jump into today's conversation.
So you call your doctor. The earliest appointment's 3 weeks out. You sit in a waiting room for 2 hours. You pay your copay. Just makes your stomach turn. And after all of that, you still don't know what's wrong. Here's something that nobody's ever told you. There is a doctor in Charlottesville, Virginia, who spent 25 years inside that system and decided to blow it up. His name is Dr. Tom Weber. He built something called MD Ortho, a platform where you open an app on your phone and a board-certified orthopedic specialist is looking at your injury the same day. There's no waiting room, there's no copay, and there's no turnaround. This is not a story about technology, guys. This is a story about a doctor who got tired of watching his patients suffer through a system that was supposed to help them. You don't want to miss this one. Stay with me. Tom, I'm so happy to have you on Pain to Performance today. I can't believe I'm getting to speak to you. Thank you so much for joining.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, Brad, I did cancel my spot on Joe Rogan to be with you, so I hope you appreciate
You
me
know
taking
what?
this
I will
time, brother.
absolutely make sure that he knows that you said that. That's so great. Thank you. I mean, I'll tell you this. Like, whenever my team finally got a hold of you, and they brought all your information in, I was like, man, this would be such a great conversation because as a neuromuscular therapist, I sit across from people every week who are just straight frustrated. They're in pain. They're exhausted by the healthcare system before they even get to me, and like
Right.
what you've built feels like the thing I've been wishing existed for my patients for so many years. So before we get into MD Ortho, I want to know what like made you build it, right? Because 25 years inside the system,
Yeah.
it's a really long time, right? What finally broke? Like, what made you want to go this direction?
Yeah, a couple big things happened, right? 2015, let's say, to 2019 was technology, right? So many patients would come into our office and be like, "Hey, Dr. Weber, I was looking on WebMD and it said my shoulder pain could be shoulder cancer." So I got really scared and I had to come in. And, of course, we kind of chuckle, "Mrs. Jones, it's going to be okay. You don't have shoulder cancer. But what you do have is a rotator cuff tear, those kind of things." And then the other, pivotal point in my, memory is one patient came in and said, "Dr. Weber, you remember that back brace your clinic gave me, a month ago when I saw you? That was $1,600 that got billed to my insurance." And I kind of turned red faced and like,
Yeah.
"I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry this system is so crummy." And so I got tired of it. I was approaching 50 and I said, "I don't know if I can do this for 15 more years, right? Suffer through this and not deliver, the care that people deserve." All of us in healthcare went into it, like you, I'm sure, because we like
Yeah.
people and we care about them, right? We want them to get better. And I just saw so many roadblocks and so many layers that the healthcare system had become that I said, we can just do this better. We give advice to friends and
Oh
family
yeah.
across the country all the
Mhm.
time without ever seeing them, right? And so that's what sparked off the idea
So
for MD
you've
Ortho.
been in orthopedic medicine for 25 years. Is that correct? So you trained
That's
at
correct.
Medical
Yep.
College of Wisconsin as well. And you've been in exam rooms with thousands of patients, I'm sure, by this point in time. What was it about the traditional system that made you say, like, this just isn't working and I need to build something different? Like, was there a certain point, or like,
Yeah.
do you remember the day that you were sitting in that treatment room, whatever it may be, and saying, yeah, this just isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So after medical college of Wisconsin, went to University of Virginia for residency, and then did a sports medicine fellowship at the Ohio State University. And you're right. I'm a non-operative orthopedic specialist, and so I probably accumulated over 100,000 patient visits, right, in that 25 years. So that back brace comment really kind of set me off. Like, how can we charge someone $1,600 for a brace that you can get on Amazon for $160? And then the other big thing, Brad, was just pattern recognition. And that's, we'll talk about in a little while, but for orthopedics, there's only so many things that can go wrong in one body part, right? So I would joke with my family. I'd say, hey guys, before I go in to see a patient, I already know what's wrong. I looked at their x-rays, I saw how old they were and whether or not there was an injury. And I knew it's one of three things that was making their knee hurt. So after all those years, I loved getting to know patients and having that connection. I heard their stories and all those things, but really, I again connected with colleagues across the country who felt the same way and said, we can just build a system, right, that does this so much faster and so much more accurate because we are experts and we've heard those stories 100,000 times. And so that was kind of the impetus for it, to really standardize it and again release it to the whole country so that everybody could get this kind of care that we were delivering every day in our offices.
So on your website, you wrote something that also stayed with me, and it kind of follows in line with this. You said your team went into medicine with one main goal, right? To help people. And I think that's why a lot of people go into medicine or any type of healthcare in general, is because that's where it is that their heart lies, is with helping people, right? But then you said that if you can make someone's physical and mental health even just a little bit better, the career of service is worth every minute, right? So when did you start feeling like the system was getting in the way of that mission?
Yeah, I'll be honest, my whole career, right? Like the cool thing in our field, right, is in the sports medicine aspect is we would take, we'd be team physicians, right, for universities and high schools. And so in those training rooms, you had rapid fire. You'd see 10 or 12 athletes in 30 minutes because, again, it's sort of like board questions, 17-year-old soccer player with female, right, with hip pain for 4 weeks. Ding, 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 stress fracture, right? So you got to rule out a hip stress fracture. So all along, we're trained to hear a story, make some, calculations in our head, odds, ratios, do an exam and be like, that's what you have, right? And so from the very beginning, we were promised electronic medical records. Oh, that'll make your life easier. Ask any professional, including yourself, right? How much time do you spend on that computer versus with the patient? And it's really bad, right? And so from the very beginning, I saw the deficiencies. And then because of billing, because of the rules with insurance, right, it's just more and more layers that disconnect you from the patient. And so all along this was building, in my career. I wish we could go back to the days where you would write one sentence about your patient and charge them $10 and they go on their way, right? But all of us healthcare providers have been in the same boat, and we've become so detached from our patient and patient care, thanks to all those rules and regulations, which I get it, they have a place, but it really robs sort of the heart and soul out of so many providers because they just get beaten down. And so it was building and building, and at the end of 2018, 19.
I totally get it, Dr. Weber. And here's the thing about that as well. I think it took me 8 or 9 months for me to get my credentialing as a community care provider for the VA, right? And I'll tell you this right now. I mean, first of all, I was very excited about it. I really was. I was like, this population it really needs the help, and was over the moon the moment that I got that. I got that credentialing. And then you go into the training. Yeah. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, I'm going to have no time to be able to care for my patients. I'm going to have zero time to be able to do this. And they're like, oh, but if you chart everything digitally, it's going to make your life so much easier. It absolutely does not. It does not at all. And the reason why is because now they're saying, oh, well, because you can do everything digitally, now we're going to make it even harder. And they're like, now I need to have this and this
Right.
and this, and this has to be in the exact area. If it's not there, then it's denied. And it's kind of turned into this just wheel of dysfortune almost, in a way, because you'll spin it and you're like, please, no, like I want the million, and then you land on bankrupt every single time. And so, and unfortunately, the patients are catching the brunt of that. And a lot of people don't know, and I've actually spoke with a regenerative orthopedic surgeon actually about a month ago, and we got to talking about insurance billing in general. And I don't want to dive too deep into that because that's a completely different conversation in itself. But I want to remind the listeners that the practitioners are always really good. They are innately good. But the problem is insurance does tie the hands of practitioners. And unfortunately, they are the ones that get to dictate the plan of care. And that which is wild to me, absolutely crazy. And which is part of the reason why I'm really happy that massage therapy isn't necessarily underneath insurance, privatized health insurance, because then at that point, even with the VA, somebody will come in with like lower lumbar radiculopathy, right? Which, guys, is just a lot of pain in the lower back. Okay. But all I get is 30 minutes to be able to work on that one area. And I'm like, but what you don't understand is this is an ascending syndrome, which means I have to work everything from the hamstrings all the way through the glutes, all the way into the QL and portion of the lats. I can't do that in 30 minutes, you know? And by the time I even get started, it starts causing issues. So I'm kind of curious, Dr. Weber, if what it is that I'm talking about and what other physicians have also talked to me about, if you were experiencing the same thing, if you felt that, because you were talking about how your quality of care is really high and how we have all these different barriers, and now you've created something that really fixes those issues, right? Did you also experience the same problems in your 25 years of practice with the thousands of patients you've seen?
Without question, right? So the quick antidote I'll give you is, you probably know this, and a lot of physicians out there and other healthcare providers will attest to this, but in most big hospital systems, every quarter, every 6 months, you get a test, right? So one of the billers and coders goes into your past, patient charts and pulls up 5 examples, and they grade you on how you billed for your appointment, right? You either build too high because you didn't support it enough, or you build too low, and you literally have to spend 30 minutes with a coding specialist. God love them for what they do. And you get graded on how you build your patients and how you build insurance, because guess what? They say, oh, we're leaving money on the table, right? And so most of us are like, are you serious? Like, I just, fixed 5,000 people's problems, and you're, criticizing me because I didn't bill a 99203 instead of a 99204? Like, give me a break, right? So 100%. And that whole system with what we've built, it skips all that stuff. As you probably also know, Brad, there are about 10 people between the healthcare provider and the patient that have to be paid. Landscapers, coders, billers, insurance specialists, right? Real estate people. Most hospital systems, cost actual hospitals, over, $500 million to build. Who's going to pay for that, right? And so, like you're describing, if you can have direct pay, if you can work outside the insurance world, guess what? You can actually deliver care. You can make a fair living, and the patient gets that care they need. So you don't have to do all that stuff. But absolutely, coding, billing, insurance has literally driven, tens of thousands of people out of healthcare because it's so complex.
It really does. And I'm just so happy, Dr. Weber, that you guys have kind of created the system, and listeners, hang with us here because we are going to talk about that here in just a few. But there was a really cool story that Dr. Weber kind of told me about, and I kind of want to jump into that. some anecdotal evidence for you guys. Sure. Okay. So, right.
How does it work?
you told me about this Friday night story, right? There's a high school football player who got injured. Walk me through what happens next in the traditional system, right? Like, let's pretend that this individual got hurt on the field and they are now going to go through the regular orthopedic processes, right? And then I want you then to walk me through that versus what happens with MD Ortho, because the gap between those two experiences is like the entire point right now, right?
Yeah, right on. Yeah, right on. So the traditional way, right? So this young man is in Texas, Friday night lights, right? As you said, hurts his knee and, gets off at the end of the game, limping off the field, maybe has a bag of ice on it from his trainer. God love them out there on a Friday night helping these kids. And mom and dad are stuck with the decision of, do we need to take Jimmy to the hospital? Do we need to see how it feels in the morning? They just don't know, right? So sometimes they'll decide, all right, he's a pretty tough kid. Let's, sleep through the night and see how it feels. But eventually they may say, you know what, we got to go to the emergency room. It's a Saturday morning. None of the clinics are open. We don't have anybody to call. The trainer said, follow up on Monday, but, Jimmy still can't walk on his legs. So they go to the emergency room, right? They pay $1,000 to $1,500 for the visit, right? They may not have that with their deductibles, depending. They might take some x-rays and say, well, we're not really sure. We think you sprained the knee. Here's some crutches and a $500 brace. Follow up with your doctor on Monday, right? So the weekend goes by, they ice. Jimmy still can't walk very well. His knee hurts. And they call their doctor on Monday. Hey, can you see us? Oh, man, we are overslammed. We're already triple booked. We can squeeze you in on Thursday. Goes to see the trainer, keeps hobbling around in the crutches, sees their doctor. Oh, geez, you sprained this pretty good. Okay, the x-rays at the ER were negative. I guess you should probably see ortho, right? So calls ortho. Yeah, we can get you in next Friday, right? So another 10 days go by and he's hobbling around. The experienced orthopedic, specialist finally gets a hold of him. Yeah, you probably tore your ACL. We need an MRI to prove it. And, we'll get that approved by your insurance. So give us a couple days. Our staff is overworked. And, the following week, Wednesday, got approved. We got it approved. Great news. We have an appointment the week after, right? So 3 weeks later that, Jimmy's getting his MRI. He's maybe off the crutches, he's watching on the sideline, seeing what's going on. And, eventually gets the MRI and yep, sure enough, torn ACL. And, we'll make a follow-up visit with orthopedics for the following week. And there they are. 4 weeks have gone by. He's hobbled around, not sure, not knowing if his season's over. His parents have spent upwards of $2,000 just to get an answer. And that's healthcare in America if you don't have connections, if you don't know an orthopedic surgeon or a neuromuscular specialist, right? If you have to be a regular American, that's what the system does. You end up with big expenses and a really long wait.
And I mean, Dr. Weber, yes, it's very frustrating. And I have family that works in ER. I have family that works in OR. I have family that works in family practice, specialists, like specializations. And luckily, it doesn't matter what happens for me. I just have to make a phone call to say, hey, what happened? Like whenever my partner went skiing and ended up taking a pretty nasty fall. And Dr. Weber, you already know where I'm going with this. The MCL and the ACL. And I literally told them before they left the house, I said, please come back in one piece. And they didn't say how big the pieces had to be is what they told me. But as soon as they told me what happened, I was very concerned and I called my mother immediately and said, hey, listen, can you ask one of the docs? Guys, she works in orthopedics. And I said, I don't know like what's happening here, how severe this could be. I said, can we just ice it, And luckily, and what it is I do a lot of orthopedic testing because I have to find out can I actually help you, right? Because if I can't help you, I'm not going to take your money.
Right. Yep.
And that's whenever I send them over to ortho. And I'll tell you this, I actually just got a text message yesterday from one of my clients. And she said, Brad, you were right. It is the MCL. And in a minute, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, yes. And then I was like, oh, darn. I was like, you know, because it just goes to show you that you have to have the right people in your corners to be able to point you in the right directions. Because a lot of people will come to me and say, hey, I don't know, should I go see this physician? To which I'm always going to say, yes, they know way more than I do. But I can at least give them a little bit more of a educated decision. And we'll talk about here in a minute about what it is that they can try to do to help themselves before they were to call the physician, right?
Yeah.
But the runaround that has to happen because health cost is so high is insane. I'll tell you, Dr. Weber, I don't want to be in an ER either. I think it's what, $2,000 to darken the door there. My local hospital charges a convenience fee. It's insane.
Wow.
So, I mean, let's talk about running hospitals like businesses rather than healthcare. So, you've created this just incredible system, and you have done this from your experience of going through everything and saying, wait a minute, before I even go in, I already kind of know what's going to happen with this person. I already kind of know what's going on. And you said that you weren't doing surgeries, correct? You were a non-surgical physician. So at that point, you're just helping people manage and to be able to navigate. Is that correct as well?
Yeah. And, you know, statistics wise, right? So even though orthopedic surgery, you know, obviously the word is included, but like 80 or 90% of orthopedic issues and injuries don't need surgery, right? So that's the beauty of, again, how we can help. And we'll talk about our surgical solutions also, but yes, 100%. So the diagnosis, treatment, and management includes so many things. And thankfully for that small percentage of people, you know, surgery is one of the solutions.
So I want to get back to that story. You gave me a segue to get back into it. So that's what I want to do. So with this individual, this football player that ends up getting hurt, right? You just said that their parents spent all this money and now they are at the point of having to figure out what the next steps are. They finally made it in, what, I think you said 3 weeks later, which, by the way, whenever we have an injury like that, that's not good to be waiting that long, people. Soft tissue injuries are not meant to sit that long. So once they've made it through all of that, how could MD Ortho Systems have changed that for them? Like, where does it slice it?
100%.
Where does it cut it off?
Yeah, right on. So, so that was, right, the hypothetical story, right, that we just said. The real story of what happened was that, you know, smart mom got home that night and said, oh yeah, we have MD Ortho through our employer. She pulls up our app. She, you know, selects her son, Jimmy, we'll call him, on the app, and says, Jimmy hurt his knee, and answers 5 or 6 questions about the injury and schedules an appointment for 10 a.m. Saturday morning with actually me, but any one of our providers. And, so we hop on the Zoom call. We take a look at Jimmy's knee standing in his kitchen. You can see it's obviously swollen. Football player, right? He had planted and twisted and felt a pop, right? And ask anybody in the business, and that is an ACL tear until proven otherwise. So what we did, again, through this company and the beauty of, you know, the changing tide of healthcare, we looked up his zip code and we found a imaging center about 20 minutes from his house. We purchased a $450 MRI and got an appointment at 4:00 that afternoon, right? So we send his mom a message, great news, 4:00, you know, be there at 3:30. Jimmy's a healthy 16-year-old kid, you know, no metal in his eye. He's not claustrophobic. Some of those screening questions. He goes over, gets the MRI. Sunday, we get a message in the system, you know, torn ACL, sadly, et cetera, et cetera. So we got on the phone Monday morning with Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Center near his house. We talked to the charge nurse and said, hey, we got this nice kid, tore his ACL Friday night. Can you see him? The, you know, good surgeon said, of course, right? That's a surgical case. Surgeons love to do surgery, right? No secret there. And squeezed him in at 4:00 that afternoon, right? So in a matter of 48 hours, we had the diagnosis with the correct test for only $450, kept them out of the emergency room, urgent care, out of his own doctor's office. and got him in with the specialist that was going to do surgery, within 3 days. So that's how healthcare can be and should be. And a perfect example of how we can do it through orthopedics, right? We didn't need to examine his knee. We didn't need to let the swelling go down. The beauty of MRIs, as you know, they tell the whole story, right? 60 years ago, we couldn't have done that. We would have had to do the Lockman exam to prove that ACL was torn. But that's what they call technology, right? That's why it's here. And, MRIs, because they're expensive in hospital systems, that's why, oh, no, you got to do physical therapy for 6 weeks before you get the MRI. But now with these cash price options, it's changing the game. And of course, technology is changing the game. So Jimmy and his mom, to say the least, were quite happy. Unfortunately, he had a season-ending injury, but they got the answer they need. And they kind of faced that battle. And guess what? He got surgery a week later, and was on the road to recovery 2 or 3 weeks sooner than
I think that's the thing that people don't really think about, is that things can be different. And I'm so happy there's people out there like you, Dr. Weber, that are saying, but orthopedics can be different. And every time I tell my patients, I say, hey, listen, I really think you should go see my orthopod. I really think you should. They go, oh, yeah. And I'm like, I know, I get it. But like, I really think that there's something going on here that I can help with the inflammation that's surrounding things, but the actual root cause, I'm pretty sure, is going to be something different here. And 9 times out of 10, it does tend to be that way. And I will tell you though, they'll come to me and they'll be like, oh, well, we had to do x-rays first. I was like, yep, normal process. I was like, because the normal process to an MRI is to have the x-rays first to say that they're clear, to then be able to say, all right, next step is, and then they're like, okay, well, they're saying that this is the problem, but they're telling me that I have to go through PT for like 6 weeks before I can even consider surgery. I said, well, again, insurance saying this is the step to be able to get there. I said, rather than you just being able to do everything out of pocket, like what you're talking about, Tom. And by the way, it tends to be cheaper that way, guys. It's a little bit more upfront, but you are saying that it is going to be cheaper. And I do agree with that statement, because a lot of people don't know that you can shop for an MRI. People did not know that. And I've told every one of my patients, I said, listen, do not do it at a hospital. And maybe at some point the hospitals will start to catch on that if they want to be able to get the people outside of there, besides people that are stuck there and have to have their MRIs, they'll change their pricing structure. But they it's just this process that goes over and over and over again. And it seems like what you guys have done is just completely blown up that process and have literally been able to collect the $200, right, and land exactly where we need to on that Monopoly board to save us money. Is that kind of what I'm understanding?
100%. Because again, we have a robust team that includes massage therapy and neuromuscular specialists like you, and physical therapists and athletic trainers. Right. So it is absolutely a team physician approach. And because of that, and again, with all of our clinicians' experience, we know what the treatment pathway is. And sometimes, right, as you alluded, sometimes, virtual physical therapy or in-person therapy is the right answer, right? Let's say in your case of the lumbar radiculopathy, a steroid pack that we called in knocked their pain down 50%. Awesome, right? All right, let's get you in with Brad. Let's try to help that body heal so we can avoid surgery. But we do that like live, like every few days we check in. Are we going the right way? If it goes downhill, oh, the steroids wore off. I'm miserable. I can't get out of bed and go to work. Okay, skip to MRI. You need an epidural injection. Let's try a shot in your back, right? To, again, try to help avoid surgery because, right, surgery can have complications. So 100%. We say we're skipping the maze, right? You're not lost. You have a guide. We're your Sherpa, right? And help you get to healing and resolution the fastest and most often the most cost-effective way by doing that. Whereas when you're lost in the system and you have no guide or you have no friends like you or me that can help you, you end up spending a lot of money, wasting a ton of time, and it takes you way longer to get better than it
Absolutely
should,
agree.
without
So
question.
if I recall correctly, I've done quite a bit of research on the system, and I believe you serve employers now. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. And a blanket statement here, Brad. Employers in the United States bear the brunt of the healthcare
Sure.
expenditure, right? We spend $5 trillion on healthcare, and certainly Medicare and Medicaid, wonderful programs that everyone needs, right? I believe in that fully. But I really feel badly for employers that provide healthcare insurance for people, because they're the ones that see premiums go up 20, 30,
Sure.
50% almost every year, right? And so we, again, our main approach is to say, hey, employers, let us become your team physicians for all things orthopedic, sports medicine, and even workers' comp, and we'll help you actually save money. You're going to get concierge care. Your employees will get better faster and stay on the job. And oh, by the way, you're going to save a bunch of money. And they're like, you can't do that, right? Like you said earlier,
Yeah.
people are so trained. Oh no, I got to use my insurance card. I got to go, to this physical structure because that's what they tell me to do. So that they most of the time can't believe it until we're with them for 6 months or a year, and they're like, "Holy cow, you guys weren't kidding! Like you guys help us skip the maze and save a ton of money." So we do. That's our primary connection is through employers, but we do have a self-pay for individuals that we also have built out for the individual
Okay.
user that needs
So
our help.
so the companies provide MD Ortho as a free benefit, I'm assuming, to their workers, right? So can you
That's
walk me
correct.
through what happens when someone gets hurt on maybe, like, let's say a factory floor or a construction site, and then they have MD Ortho? What does their day look like compared to the worker
Yeah.
at the company that does not have you guys?
100%. So it's that same thing like the 16-year-old athlete, right? If they have to go through the traditional system, they typically will go to an emergency room or an urgent care and sit there for whatever, 30 minutes to 4 hours waiting for care. They may get an x-ray, they may not. And that provider, right, God bless them, they're trained to deal with like heart attacks and super complex stuff, but they typically don't have a
Mm,
ton of training in
sure.
orthopedics, right? Or injuries. Well, you hurt your thumb. Okay, what does that mean? Well, go see ortho. It's not broken. We don't know what to do, right? Maybe they write you off of work. Maybe they put you on light duty. And so, you may lose money, right? Without a full paycheck. You may be off work for 2 weeks waiting to get into that specialist. And then the employer gets dinged. Oh, your workplace isn't safe. You had, 30 workplace injuries last year that were recorded. And so the employer, who may be an incredibly, great employer and have really good safety systems in place, gets dinged because they go through the traditional system. With us, it's the same thing, meaning you get to talk to an expert right away who evaluates how you got hurt, right? And decides, okay, this is probably going to be a minor injury. You slipped on the floor, you fell on your butt, you might have bruised your tailbone, but we don't need x-rays. Let's ice and rest and check on you in a couple days. You can still do your job, but work will, let you, take it a little bit easy because, of course, your tailbone hurts, right? Or we had a case just last week. A woman was driving a pallet jack and it squished her foot, right? We got on the call, saw that it was swollen. And so we just sent over an x-ray order to an imaging center. One of the employees helped take her colleague and got x-rays and had a tiny little fracture that we knew didn't need surgery. We got her crutches and a boot and, put her on light duty, right? All that stuff happened like that and didn't have to wait and to get to the actual expert that knows how to manage that care. So we deliver that concierge service again for anybody that gets hurt at home or has a chronic pain at home, and on the work site for workplace injuries. Every state is different, as you know, and there's rules and regulations, which are all good and well intended. But we can serve as the medical director for a company and be that first call and decide, do they need further care? And then we can be on their panel of physicians to help, again, if that injury is more complex, to get them resolution. And if like a surgery is needed, heaven forbid, we help, get them into the right surgeon nearby for that care.
So, Dr. Weber, I'm really curious. Are you guys the first ones in your industry to be doing something like this?
Oh, very good question. So I won't toot our horn too much, but We believe we're the most comprehensive platform on the market. There's some other good ones out there. A lot of them deal in physical therapy and virtual physical therapy, which is an
Sure.
amazing piece of the puzzle and absolutely helps a lot of people. But because we have that full spectrum of care, that anything you need orthopedically, at home, at work, physical therapy, medications, imaging,
Yeah.
referrals into local surgeons, we think we are the first one and certainly the most robust.
I mean, that's
robust
the reason why I asked, is because I know of some of these others, and they don't do nearly half of what it is that you just talked about, right? Because as an employer in a small business
Yeah.
owner, and I have a bachelor's in business, right? And I've ran some successful companies as well. As an employer, it would be crazy for me not to want to bring you guys on there, because of what it is you just told me was,
Yeah.
this is me taking better care of my employees. This is me making it to where they don't have to fight the system to be able to get the care that they need while they were hurt, doing what it is that I have asked them to do. Like, that is just so great. So I want to talk about your LinkedIn for just a second, though. So you said something there that I just absolutely loved. And I think it kind of summarizes everything that we've just kind of spoken about. But I have a little bit of a question that follows it. So you said access to experts via a mobile app at zero cost to employees is how easy healthcare should be. I agree with that statement wholeheartedly, right? That's what I just said. But why is it not this easy everywhere, though? Like, what is the structural reason the rest of the system just hasn't caught up yet?
Yeah, right. And part of that, I think, Brad, is the insurance world, right? And the billing world, right? So Medicare, Medicaid developed in the 60s, as I recall, right, to provide, kind of a national health care. And essentially you have third parties that are controlling and managing the money, right? So an employer wants insurance, they hire one of the big insurance systems to take care of their people. They pay them, then the big insurance carrier says, okay, we're going to pay Dr. X, Y, or Z, this much money to take care of you. So it's a big chain. That is a big, long-standing, complicated chain with so many layers, as we talked about, and so many people that are paid. I hate to say it, but as with all things, follow the money, right? It's a big $5 trillion massive money system. And so physicians like myself and healthcare providers like you, we grew up in that system, and we said, well, this is just how it is, right? And I have said to people, I could have never started this company when after 5 years of experience. I had no idea,
Sure.
right? I was still learning just how to take care of people, the art of medicine, the science of medicine. And so the business of medicine is super complex. But what we've distilled it down to is, you're just hiring doctors. You're paying people directly to take care of your folks. And because of technology, right, like this call that we're on, you can do all that stuff, right? I didn't have to fly down to Georgia to see you in person. We're having a great conversation here because of technology. It's the same thing. And for so long, the system said, oh, Brad, if you think you have a sinus infection, oh, brother, you got to come in. You might have a brain tumor. We could miss something really bad, right? But the truth is, and you've seen it, Teladoc, there's platforms out there that are, much older than we are and have been doing this great work. You can get that care like that because 99.9 times out of 100, you do just have a sinus infection. And Brad, here's your antibiotic, feel better, right? So we're bringing that, and technology is just advancing it faster. That's the beauty of it. AI is amazing, right?
Of course.
It needs help, right?
Yes,
It needs, we think,
absolutely.
human oversight still. And that's what we found. People still like to talk to a person, right? Even if we're not there live, in front of you. And so we're utilizing AI as well to make us more efficient. We say that we are multiplying doctors, right? Because there aren't enough. There's going to be 150,000, doctor shortage in about 5 to 10 years. And then what are you going to do? So as you know, right, that AI market is massive, but we think that human touch, that human connection is still really important. And so the reason that this hasn't been done, right, is all those layers. But we think experienced physicians like myself and my colleagues across the country are saying, hey, we can do this better. And if we don't change it, no one's going to. There's going to be no, CEO of a big healthcare system that says, we got to make healthcare faster and cheaper for people. Right? They have to charge more. They have to charge a convenience, right? Our margins are getting narrow. We got to figure out how else we can charge money. So it's a broken system, but we're super excited that people like you are interested in it and helping us spread the word. So thanks again for having us on today.
Absolutely, I'm happy that you came on to talk about it, because I don't think that people understand that there is concierge medicine out there. It's starting to catch on a little bit in my community. There's some nurse practitioners and things of that sort that are starting concierge care, where they're saying, listen, you can have this insurance through your employer. It'll pay for your labs. It'll pay for this, but you're just going to pay me a monthly fee, and I will see you an unlimited amount of times. And I'm like, that sounds fantastic. And I'll tell you this right now, with the cost of how healthcare is, I mean, my healthcare right now a month is about $500. And it's insane. Where, I mean, not only that, but whenever I go see the physician, now I have to pay my copay as well, where instead I could just not be concerned about that anymore. And I can just pay that physician that monthly fee and be able to see them. So I kind of want to talk about your platform though now. Right. So can you walk me through a virtual visit? Maybe, like, let's pretend I'm a patient. We're going to keep with the knee example, right? I just hurt my knee. Actually, you know what? Let's change it. Let's go to the shoulder joint, right? Shoulders are always more fun. So I just hurt my shoulder, right? I open the MD Ortho app. What happens next? Like, can you give me a step-by-step process? Because I think most people out there cannot imagine how like something like this would work.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So basically, right. And right now, again, the majority of our, patients are employees with our clients, the employers, right, the businesses across the country. We are nationwide, expanding like every 5 minutes. I had to carve out a lot of time to get this call on, but when you download the app, right, you're pre-built in there when you work for a company, right, that sponsors us, that hires us to take care of you. So if you went in there, you'd put your cell phone number in your login, and you'd create a password, and you're in the system, right? Once you're in, there's a simple button that says schedule a visit, right? So you go in there, click that button. It has you fill out the brief profile, right? Male, female, what are your medications? What are your past, medical history, past surgical history, et cetera. And then you start answering questions. Okay, you select my right shoulder hurts. And then we say, was there an injury or not? Yes, there was an injury. And you describe the injury based on the questions we ask you. Smart technology that guides you through that. And then there's a section where you can, just free speech. Like, my shoulder really hurts when I'm driving a car, or I reach behind my back, right? I hurt my shoulder 2 months ago and it just hasn't gone away. And then you click your time. I want to meet with one of your providers on Tuesday morning at 8:00. Boom, you have your appointment. Our system sends you a reminder that day, and you log into a Zoom call. It's just like this. And then I start asking you questions. I've already seen your intake history. Our system has already, predicted what condition you have. And then it's our job to, finalize that and pick out the details. Maybe you uploaded a couple pictures of your shoulder or a video, that we prompted you to show us the motion, but then we have that live visit. And let's just say, for, safety's sake, 2 months ago, you're a young, healthy guy, and, it wasn't too bad of an injury, but you rested it for a couple weeks, and now your shoulder is killing you, right? You're like, oh my God, if I reach for my car keys, like, I feel like I'm going to die. And I'm not that old, right? So with all those, questions and answers, we decide how complicated or dangerous that injury was. Do you need an x-ray? Do you need an MRI? But we decide after that visit, you know what, Brad, I think you probably have a frozen shoulder. It's called adhesive capsulitis, right? We don't know why it happens, but the shoulder gets inflamed and that capsule gets tight because you, as a young man, can no longer reach behind your back. I know you don't have shoulder arthritis, and you didn't fall off the chairlift at the ski hill. So we know you didn't fracture your shoulder in 10 pieces. So based on that, we may call in a little prednisone for you, and then we would have you start doing virtual therapy exercises for a frozen shoulder. If it's really rough, sometimes we'll refer you to a therapist near you to help with that stretching. As you know, sometimes with frozen shoulders, you need a little help to get that thing moving. And sometimes we might even order a guided cortisone injection in that shoulder to help speed up your healing. So that's essentially how it works. No cost to you. Any of the local referrals, to providers typically would run through your standard insurance, though we're building that out also for cash pay physical therapy. Certainly vouchers for MRIs and surgeries already exist, and we utilize those a lot. But it's fast, it's convenient from when you want it to be done. And again, you have an answer in 18 hours instead of waiting 6 weeks to get into the orthopedic specialist. So it's that easy. And people are just like, wait a minute. I can't tell you the number of times when a call is done, a mom, a parent, or just a patient says, I can't believe this. Like, this is how healthcare should be. And so that's music to my ear. It fuels our team. I can't tell you how many life-saving visits we've had. We can talk about those later, but it's amazing what it's done,
Sure.
For me professionally, and just getting back to the root of helping people and removing those barriers. 40% of people avoid or delay healthcare visits because of the cost. That's half the country, right?
I'm unfortunately a part of that as well, right? And I'm telling you, it's deeply unfortunate. And what I need is for gastroenterologists to be doing this now. That's what I need. I need internal med to be doing this now. So, let's. It has to at this point. I mean, you're saying follow the money, and it's time for people to start realizing that there's other ways of doing things, right? So we just talked about the shoulder, right? And by the way, guys, frozen shoulder sucks. It's rough. I've had so many patients come in with it, and I tell them, listen, I can't heal that. I can't fix it. But what we can do is try to get some blood flow into it. We might release some of the capsulitis that's inside of there. You'll feel a little bit of pops and cracks as we're working, but if the fastest way out of that one tends to be surgery, and the way that surgery works is a little rough. So I tell everybody, listen, we can do something that direction to try to help you, but it's not going to get rid of it. So that's potentially where Dr. Weber, I'm now kind of saying where there could be synergy with my business here, of where I'd be like, hey, listen, I got people for you, right? I really do. So you diagnose and treat over 250 orthopedic conditions through this platform, right? We already kind of talked about it. We're kind of talking about frozen shoulder, meniscal tears, rotator cuff issues, sciatica, carpal tunnel, even just simple fractures, right, at that point. So for the skeptic listening who thinks virtual means you can only handle the minor stuff, can you explain the range? What can you actually do through a screen?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, right, and the old adage of, we learned in medical school early, right? If you just shut up long enough, Dr. Weber, and let your patient talk, they'll tell you what's wrong with them, right? So people know their body. They're very smart. And, they won't come to us if they fall off a ladder and their elbow is crooked in 90 degrees in the wrong direction. They're not going to think, I think I'll ask MD Ortho what's wrong, right? They go to the emergency room, right? So there's a lot of self-selection. But the truth is, and we list 250 as a somewhat, random number, but the point is there's not just three things we can fix, right? Because we know how to navigate the system and the process to get you to that final destination, right? There's a few things, as you well know, in medicine, especially orthopedics, that really require that hands-on touch. And let's just say multi-directional instability of the shoulder. That's better diagnosed in person. However, if it's a 16-year-old, right, female that tends to have more loose ligaments and capsule, and her shoulder keeps subluxing, very likely that's what she has without me ever putting, a diagnostic hand on her, right? So we can do so many things, and if we can't fix it or know exactly what it is, we know where to get you to get that answer, right? How many times do you hear the story of, my knee hurt, so I saw the orthopedic specialist and he doesn't do meniscal repair. So then I had to see his partner, right? So all that stuff happens, and that's where we skip those steps and we get you into the correct person that needs surgery. We just had a episode last winter where a 19-year-old baseball player, was having elbow pain and his elbow was locking up, right? And so we knew he'd been playing Little League since he was a kid. We knew he probably had bone chips in there because that's just the only thing in a 19-year-old that will make your elbow lock. So we got the MRI, again, cash price, $500, and we got him into the elbow surgeon that does that procedure in about 10 days. He got him in the surgery schedule, I think the first of the year, and he's playing baseball right now for his senior year in college, right? So just even though we couldn't do virtual surgery on his elbow, we sped up that process and got him into the right surgeon without spending any more than $500, right? Instead of $3,000 on that same MRI that surgeon needed to fix.
So I'm curious, what would you say to the person who hears virtual doctor's visit, right? And assumes it's just a watered down version of the real care itself then?
Yeah, it's understandable, right? Because people have had some of those experiences, probably, right? We can't say that all virtual care is really good, but it's getting better, right? This field is exploding, and so you're getting more and more experienced physicians, surgeons, nurse practitioners, PAs, and PTs, on down the line that are doing it that really have the experience, right? Like, as I told you, when I was 5 years out of training, I never would have done this.
Sure.
I would have never had the confidence to be like, I can tell you, Brad, what's wrong with your shoulder. No problem. Right now we can. And all of our providers have at least 5 to 10 years experience, if not 20 or 30 like me, in that realm. So we absolutely can do it. And literally, I haven't been close to being stumped once. I'll just say that, right? I have never been like, geez, Brad, I'm not really sure what's wrong with you. It's just orthopedics is very reproducible and it's just patterns. And we know those steps you have to go through sometimes to get better, right? So we don't always have the perfect answer solution. You're cured day one, but we will follow up with you. We'll make sure that the exercises are going well. And if not, then we get that imaging, test. I often ask a lot of patients, well, if your rotator cuff was torn, would you want surgery? No way, no way. Well, that's fine. Then let's not do the MRI because it's going to show that you have partial tears. You're 62 years old. Sorry to say, I know you have a tear in there, but let's do therapy first. Let's go see Brad. Let's ice it. Let's think about an injection and see if we can get you better without ever having to get the MRI. So it's a lot of complex algorithms, but when you're in the business long enough, you just know how to navigate those.
So
things.
I'm sure there's somebody listening right now and they're probably in pain, right? They've been waiting for an appointment. Maybe they're just trying to figure out who the correct person it is to go to. Or maybe they just got hurt and they just don't know where to start, right? So what should they do? Like, I'm looking for something that they can do tonight, right? And I'm not looking for the whole healthcare overhaul or anything of that sort. Like, what's the first thing that individual should do?
Yeah, right. So with either chronic pain or, a more recent injury, Brad, that the whole RICE, right, acronym is spot on, right? So resting the joint, icing the joint, if it's swollen, elevating it, and then, sometimes compression, right? So anti-inflammatories, if you can take them safely, right? If you're not on a blood thinner, you don't have an allergy to them, those tend to work better than the acetaminophen, right? For pain relief and icing. So with most pain conditions, ice and anti-inflammatories gives people relief. Okay. And then, as I said, based on the complexity of the injury, if you just fell on your carpet and bumped your knee and it's a little bit swollen, I'm sure you didn't break it, right? When you break your kneecap, you broke your kneecap. You cannot move. It swells up, to the size of a watermelon. And you are like, oh my God, honey, please take me to the ER, right? So that's kind of that self-care. I will say, I don't own any stock in any AI companies yet, but if you go on to, Chat or Gemini, those systems are pretty smart. You can put in your age, your gender, your other health conditions and say what happened. And it's pretty smart, right? It's going to tell you if there's any, gray zone, please go seek care. But you can learn a lot from AI. And then, our system does have a self-pay for individuals, right? So it's mdortho.ai/self-pay, all one word. And you can log in, and for $150, you can have several visits with us to help guide you, right? No matter what state you live in, we're licensed across the country, and, can give you that concierge care for a very low cost, right? So if we see you 3 times, it's $50 a visit. You then get access to our physical therapy library. We can order x-rays, MRIs for you. We can send medications to your pharmacy. So that's not a huge part of our business yet. It will be. But we know we're going through the employers first, because that's where most people get their healthcare insurance. But for those folks that are, doing it on their own, or, they have one of those high, deductible health plans for catastrophic care,
Yeah,
please.
and I'll tell you, I am one of those people, Dr. Weber. As I said earlier.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a free visit after the call.
I appreciate
Brett,
that. I mean, I'll tell you, I'm just part of that lucky few that does have good connections, and I'm able to make those phone calls. And sometimes people don't have those, and it's so important to be able to have that low barrier of entry, which is what it is that you guys have done. So it's just so great to hear. And I have to tell you, this conversation has been everything that I was hoping it would be. I purposely didn't do much research on the actual platform itself, because I wanted to learn alongside my listeners today. And I'll tell you what, Dr. Weber, I think you did a very good job educating on the platform and why it's so needed. So before I let you go today, I do want to ask you, if somebody wants to try to contact you or to try to continue forward this conversation, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah. So, our general website is info@mdortho.ai, right? It also can be mdorthosystems.com, but we've graduated in the last couple of years. So info@mdortho.ai, our web address, www.mdortho.ai, that explains a lot of it. And then again, for those people that hear this and be like, oh my God, I have a simple question, or I just want to get an MRI cash price. I'm in Tallahassee, Florida. Great. Just go to the at mdortho.ai/self-pay, and you can just register. Our system takes your credit card, a one-time only charge of $150, and you can set up a visit for yourself within 24 hours usually. So there's all those ways to link up. And if you have an employer, that especially is self-funded, because self-funded companies save the most with us, talk to your HR specialist. Be like, listen, I heard this podcast, on Brad's podcast, and this sounds incredible for us. We have 1,000 people, and we spend millions of dollars on healthcare, which they do. And we could have this kind of concierge level care for our employees, both on work comp and employee benefits. We encourage you to look us up and reach out, and our sales team would connect with you all and explain how easy it is to sign up with us. And it's incredibly low cost. You won't believe how inexpensive it is. You won't think it's possible,
Tom,
but it is.
I have to say thank you so much for coming on today. And I've really enjoyed the conversation today. It's been very enlightening for me. It's really kind of cool, because now at this point, part of me I really want to start sending my patients towards you guys, because at that point, it means that I also get access into that care too. So it's just one of those things where I just don't think people understand how concierge medicine works. And I think you broke it down very beautifully today. I think you have a fantastic platform that I'm very excited to get to experiment with myself. I hope I don't need to, but I'm sure there's somebody out there that is going to be willing to give me the skinny on it. So again, I just appreciate your time. And I just have to say thank you so much for joining the show today.
Well, Brad, it's a pleasure. And really, what you're doing is so important, right? When I got word from your team, I was like, yes, sign me up, because we want to just spread the word. Healthcare has to change. The revolution has started. So all you people out there that are disgusted with it, most of the country, I'm sure, it's coming. And, folks like you and me and our teams, we're helping to change it, because, again, we're getting back to that principle of we just care about people. We want to get them better. And thanks to technology and, brave folks that are out there all across the country doing this, it's changing. So it's coming, and it can't come soon enough. So thanks for having me.
Guys, y'all heard it here. MD Ortho, you guys should definitely be checking it out. I know I will. Thank you so much for watching. A 16-year-old football player tears his ACL on a Friday night. By Saturday afternoon, he has a $450 MRI. By Monday, he's in the surgeon's office. That is how healthcare should work. And for most of us, it does not even come close. If you're in pain and stuck in the system, go to mdortho.ai. If your employer does not offer it yet, tell your HR department about this episode. Subscribe so you do not miss what's coming next. And send this to someone who's been waiting 3 weeks just to find out what is wrong. They deserve better. Guys, this is Pain to Performance. I'll see you next time.
Before we take off, one quick housekeeping thing. This podcast is for education and conversation only. I'm in no way a licensed therapist, doctor, wizard, and this show is not a substitute for care from a qualified professional. If something today made you think of someone you know, go ahead and do them a favor and send this episode their way. Pain is rarely a solo experience, and a good conversation is better shared. And if you're enjoying the show, make it official. Follow, subscribe, leave a review. It helps more than you realize and keeps this conversation going. Remember, the hardest part of Pain to Performance is learning how to listen. Now, I'll be here, same place, next play, and I can't wait to welcome you in.